Hey everyone, welcome to Internal Architect. I'm Todd, and I just wanted to go over kind of what is happening next in my treatment regimen. For those of you that don't know, and I'll put a couple links up above here, where am I at there, of kind of the last bit of my backstory, but I got through my initial Keytruda immunotherapy, and we found out it didn't work, and my PET scan came back showing that there was an increase in lymphoma activity, and because of that it was decided that we're going to go with something a little bit more aggressive. The goal for us at this point is to get my body back into remission and move forward with an allogeneic stem cell transplant, which my brother is going to be my donor for. And so that's kind of where it's at. But like I said, so the quick recap is I was re-diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in July of 2019. I went through 2 rounds of chemotherapy, kind of a more targeted chemotherapy, and it turns out that I was allergic to it, but it was effective, which was a good thing, I guess. And because I was allergic to it, I ended up we decided to move forward with radiation. I did 23 rounds of radiation through my whole mediastinum area, and had to wait about 4 months in order to get my results and through a PET scan, and that showed that it didn't work. And then we decided to move forward with the Keytruda immunotherapy because it has shown to really be effective against the Hodgkin's lymphoma cells, the Reed-Steinberg cells. And we've had a PET scan about 2 weeks ago, and 3 weeks ago now, and 2 weeks ago, and it didn't work, and it actually unfortunately spread, so that regimen didn't work. So at this point we kind of discussed all the different options. So there's a possibility of doing a clinical trial, but there's only 2 places in the country that are doing it. One's in North Carolina and the other's in Texas. And that at this point just isn't possible for me. A lot of reasons. 1 is financial, 2 is time, and 3 just, COVID-19 and having to travel during this period of time just isn't really feasible. So the second thing is we could have gone back to the original treatment that I was allergic to and do that under supervision and see if we could have that kind of work at a very slow pace. Or the third one is what I'm going to talk to you about today. So I want to backtrack one more time again. 10 years ago I was originally diagnosed with stage 4B reoccurring Hodgkin's lymphoma is what it turned out to be. And after I ended up doing 12 rounds of this ABVD chemotherapy, which helped really suppress the entire lymphoma, and then after a PET scan, it showed that it didn't get it all. So essentially, they consider that a reoccurrence at that point, and I ended up going through the second course of treatment called ICE, and ICE is an acronym for the type of chemotherapy that we used. Now, it was a 3-day regimen, inpatient we did it at Lutheran Hospital at the time because that was the only place that had it, and it was able to get me into remission, and we were able to move forward with an auto stem cell transplant. And that whole situation, that whole thing took about a year, and it gave me about 8.5 years of remission, which, absolutely grateful for. So fast forward to 2020, I've been through 3 different types of treatments at this point. 1 I was allergic to, and 2 just straight up didn't work. And so the 4th one that we're going to do is very similar to the ICE treatment I did 9.5 years ago. It's essentially the ICE treatment on steroids is kind of the best way to put it. And what we're going to do is do this, but I wanted to go through the ICE treatment with you, let you know what it is and how and why we're going to move forward with this. So I'm going to go through a couple websites. I have a couple things here. I have one from the Lymphoma Info, which is a great resource for lymphoma patients and just getting some solid information about it. I got a PubMed, also one which is, I won't talk about this. This is just more essentially just kind of a white paper on the IGEV regimen, which is what I am going to be doing. And then the other one is MedAdvisor, which is it says a lot of the same stuff as the Lymphoma Info. But yeah, so approximately 10% of Hodgkin patients who receive standard frontline therapy, ABVD or BCOP or standard Stanford V regimen, are not cured. And I happen to fall under this category because of the ABVD. Researchers and oncologists have a difficult time treating this 10%, and they are always looking for some sort of biomarker that indicate to them beforehand whether or not the patient will respond to standard frontline therapy. But this biomarker has been very difficult to find. And so they call this treatment a salvage treatment. And basically, when frontline treatment of Hodgkin's lymphoma fails or results in partial response, the next step is to discuss salvage therapy. Since the 1990s, the gold standards for patients with relapse or refractory Hodgkin's lymphoma have been salvage chemotherapies, followed by high-dose chemotherapy for an autologous bone marrow peripheral stem cell transplant. And that's what the ICE was for me, was the salvage chemotherapy. And that's what we're going to do with the IGEV regimen starting here in about a week. It has been determined that the treatment can produce long-term remission in about half of all relapse patients. So it's, yeah, I got a 50% chance that this is going to work. So I don't know how you want to juggle it, While several prognostic factors have been identified that can indicate that the chances that the salvage therapy will work, one issue remains unanswered, and that's which standard dose chemotherapy regimen to use will provide the best outcome for the patient. Now, since we had success with the ICE chemotherapy, and this is essentially ICE on steroids, the discussion has come down to, we feel that this is going to be an effective regimen for us, even though I am a little bit further advanced than I was 9.5 years ago. So the IGEV salvage therapy, there are many options available to doctors treating patients with relapsed Hodgkin's lymphoma in terms of combination salvage chemotherapy. A rather recently introduced regimen is IGEV. The drugs used in IGEV are as follows: ifosfamide, I might butcher these, okay, so bear with me. Ifosfamide, gemcitabine, vinorelbine, and prednisone. Sorry guys, if I butcher that, and for you medical people, if I butcher that, my bad. Yeah, their study involved 91 patients with refractory or relapsed Hodgkin's treated with IGEV. Their results demonstrated that over half the patients achieved complete response to therapy, with another 25 patients achieving partial response. The treatment had a low toxicity profile, which is really important to me, high response rate, and it had a very high mobilizing potential in terms of cell mobilization for an autologous stem cell transplant. Treatment typically involves 4 cycles of salvage therapy prior to having the peripheral blood stem cell harvested. Now, since I'm not having to harvest my own stem cells, which is what the autologous transplant is all about, which is what I did 9.5 years ago, 10 years ago. I'm getting a donor transplant which is called an allogeneic stem cell transplant, and my donor is going to be my brother. And nowadays they have ways to be able to tell how well you are going to. I don't want to say how well you're going to do, because there are risks that come along with that, and they call that graft versus host disease, GVHD. And there's lots of drugs that you have to take and all this shit, which is kind of looking like what I have to do. But there's all these markers in there, and fortunately my brother has 10 of the 10 markers that they really, really want in order to feel like there's a great chance of getting through this whole stem cell transplant with the best results you can. So that's kind of where I'm sitting at right now. And the goal is at this point, the goal is just to get my body into remission again and prepped for transplant as soon as possible. And by doing this IGEV salvage therapy, I'm optimistic that this will help really with me moving forward, and hopefully getting this behind me. And that's kind of where I'm at with it all. So yeah, this is obviously kind of a crazy bit of stuff, but yeah, the lymphoma info here, and then IGEV, kind of they talk about similar stuff in here, which is really good. I think the MedAdvisor is a little bit newer. I think this is in 2016. I don't know when this one was put in, but yeah. And then this one here, this PubMed's more the white paper of the IGEV regimen, and they have a bunch of different articles, which is great. And I haven't read them all. I just, for me, it's more important to kind of know what it is and kind of what I can compare it to in my past. So that's kind of that. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. This is the regimen I'm going to do. And so, like I said, just as a quick recap, I'm going to do 2 rounds of this IGEV regimen. Each regimen's about 4 days long. Each one will be inpatient I will be doing this down at the Colorado University Hospital, or University Colorado Hospital in Denver. And yeah, every 21 days I will have this infusion. And like I said, I'm only doing 2, and then I will, about 3 weeks after my second infusion, I will do a PET scan to see where the lymphoma is at. So from today, we're looking at about 7 weeks till my PET scan happens to see if IGEV worked or not. That's it in a nutshell. If you guys have any questions, please hit me in the comment section below. And, please like, subscribe, and share. And please do what you guys do. I just want to say I love you. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time and energy. And I will see you on the next video.